SmileDirectClub is shutting down immediately. The telehealth dental company, which provides teeth straightening devices by mail, is leaving customers unsure about refunds.
Nobody warned them. Not a phone call, not an email, not a text message. On December 8th, 2023, hundreds of thousands of SmileDirectClub customers opened their phones and found a FAQ page where their medical provider used to be. Mid-treatment, mouths half finished, still expected to keep paying. At the bottom of that page, one sentence: the lifetime smile guarantee no longer exists. 4 words that erased $1,895 in 6 months of someone's life. Just like that. This is the story of how a company that sold hope in a plastic tray convinced Wall Street it was worth $8.9 billion. How it silenced the people it hurt. How it sued everyone who tried to warn you. And how it collapsed in under 4 years, leaving 2 million customers to figure out the rest on their own. Let's start at the beginning, because the idea itself wasn't crazy. In 2014, 2 childhood friends from Michigan named Alex Finkel and Jordan Katzman looked at the orthodontics industry and saw something obvious that nobody had acted on. Yet, traditional braces cost between $3,000 and $8,000, required years of in-person appointments, required a specialist most people couldn't easily access, and fixed problems that were, in many cases, purely cosmetic. Their pitch was simple. What if you could straighten your teeth at home? Mail someone a kit, take an impression, a remote dentist reviews the plan, custom aligners shipped to your door. Total cost, $1,895. No appointments, no waiting rooms, no awkward small talk with a hygienist. It was the direct-to-consumer revolution applied to healthcare, and in 2014, that framing alone was enough to get investors very excited. By 2018, the company had raised $380 million in private funding and was valued at $3.2. They had opened over 300 physical smile shops inside CVS pharmacies across the country. They had celebrity investors. NBA star Draymond Green was on board. The marketing was everywhere. The reviews were glowing, curated it would turn out with extraordinary precision. Then came September 2019, the IPO, and the first moment the mask slipped. SmileDirectClub priced its shares at $23, valuing the company at $8.9 billion. The roadshow had been spectacular. Investor enthusiasm was high. This was going to be one of the great public market debuts of the year. The stock opened at $20.55. By end of day, it had crashed to $16.67, a 28% collapse on day one. The worst performance for a major US IPO since the year 2000. The public markets had looked at the same company the private investors loved and reached a completely different conclusion, because the public markets asked a question the how private investors had apparently skipped. How does a company that loses money selling plastic trays ever become profitable? The answer, it turned out, was that it couldn't, not the way it was built. Here's the business model problem that nobody wanted to say out loud. SmileDirectClub needed a constant flood of new customers every single quarter. Because teeth straightening isn't a subscription. You buy the aligners, you use them for 6 months, and you're done. There's no recurring revenue, no reason to come back. The entire machine ran on acquisition, and acquisition in healthcare requires marketing budgets that would make a pharmaceutical company flinch. In 2018, the company spent more on sales and marketing than it generated in gross profit. In the first half of 2019, while preparing for the IPO, it burned through $164 million in cash. Its net loss that year was $74.8 million on $423 million in revenue. This was not a company approaching profitability. This was a company running on momentum and investor money, hoping scale would eventually solve the math. It never did. But here's where the story turns from a bad business into something far darker. Because while the financial model was quietly dying, the company had a second problem: it was actively hiding. The product itself was hurting people. Not everyone. The company served over 2 million customers, and many of them got the result they wanted. But a significant and growing number of customers were experiencing serious complications, teeth moving in wrong directions, bite problems developing, mid-treatment, pain that wouldn't stop. Patients told investigators that their aligners had moved their teeth so fast that some had detached from the bone. People were facing the permanent loss of multiple teeth.
Some patients complain that these at-home treatments aren't leaving them smiling.
What did SmileDirectClub do when these customers came forward? They handed them an NDA. If you wanted a refund outside their return window, you had to sign a confidentiality agreement. You could not disparage the company. You could not publish statements about your experience. You could not post negative reviews anywhere. Sign here, get some of your money back, and never speak of this again. One of those customers was a man named Harwood. He refused to sign. He said later that the offer felt like exactly what it was: money in exchange for silence. He went public instead, and he wasn't alone. Here's the thing about building a wall of silence. It only works until one crack appears. In January 2020, the New York Times found the crack. The investigation revealed that over 1,800 Better Business Bureau complaints had been filed against SmileDirectClub. Invisalign, their main competitor, had accumulated 5 complaints over 20 years. 5 versus 1,800. That number alone should have ended the conversation, but SmileDirectClub didn't retreat. It attacked. NBC Nightly News ran its own investigation in February 2020. Hidden cameras placed in. SmileDirectClub shops in Ohio, New Jersey, and Alabama caught employees telling potential customers they didn't need to see a dentist before starting treatment. One employee said it wasn't mandatory. Another said that's what the scans are for. Patients described migraines, jaw damage, and permanent tooth movement that nobody had warned them about. It was damning television. SmileDirectClub's response was a $2.8 billion lawsuit against NBC Universal. Not a correction, not an apology, not a single acknowledgement that anything had gone wrong. A lawsuit, claiming the patients were lying and the reporting was defamatory. They sued Lifehacker for writing about their risks. They sued state dental boards for trying to regulate them. The company's legal team called every attempt at oversight an organized campaign against their mission. SmileDirectClub called it a conspiracy of dentists protecting their turf. They had a polished answer for everything except the one question that actually mattered. If the product was safe, why were so many people getting hurt? The NBC lawsuit was eventually dismissed in December 2021 under Tennessee's anti-SLAPP law, a statute designed specifically to protect journalists from companies using litigation to silence criticism. SmileDirectClub had confused aggression with strength, and in doing so, had turned every critic into a more credible witness. Meanwhile, the regulatory walls were closing in from every direction. The American Association of Orthodontists had filed complaints with 36 state dental boards. 9 members of Congress, 5 of them dentists, had written to the FDA and FTC, demanding a federal investigation. California passed legislation requiring more direct oversight before aligners could be prescribed remotely. The core business model, fast, cheap, unsupervised teeth straightening, was being declared unsafe by the very institutions it had been designed to circumvent. By 2022, the math had become impossible. Inflation was gutting consumer spending on discretionary items. Demand for $1,895 cosmetic dental work collapsed. The company lost $86.4 million that year alone. Its stock, which had never recovered from the IPO disaster, was trading below $1.
Their stock has fallen a lot since then. 97% just in the last 6 months, and just today, another 45%.
The $8.9 billion valuation had become a $166 million market cap. September 29th, 2023. SmileDirectClub filed for Chapter 11 bankruptcy with approximately $890 million in funded debt. Chapter 11 is not a death sentence, it's a last attempt, a legal shield that buys time to restructure, find a buyer, and keep the lights on.
SmileDirectClub is now out of business after filing for Chapter 11 bankruptcy back in September.
The official statement promised the restructuring would allow SmileDirectClub to thrive as an international oral care leader for many years to come. 70 days later, the company shut down. And in January 2024, the case was converted to Chapter 7, total liquidation, not a restructuring, not a sale, just over.
Teeth aligner company has closed for good, and local customers are left in limbo.
No transition period, no warning to customers in active treatment, no plan for the hundreds of thousands of people mid-treatment. Just that FAQ page. In one final sentence, But here's the part that makes this story genuinely unforgivable. The company shut down, but the payment processor didn't. Customers who had financed their aligners through SmileDirectClub's payment partner HFD were told clearly in writing that they were still expected to make all monthly payments in full. The company wasn't providing any service. The aligners weren't coming. The customer support line was dead. The website was a ghost. The bills kept arriving. The New York Attorney General eventually recovered $4.8 million for over 28,000 customers who had been wrongfully charged after the shutdown. The District of Columbia's Attorney General forced the company to release 17,000 customers from their NDAs, meaning the full scale of the damage had been deliberately suppressed for years. The founders became paper billionaires on IPO day in 2019. By the time the company collapsed, that wealth had evaporated. But the timing of the IPO meant that early private investors had already cashed out. The people left holding the bill were the public market, investors who bought the story, and the 2 million customers who bought the product. SmileDirectClub didn't fail because disruption is impossible in healthcare. It failed because it treated safety as a PR problem instead of a product requirement. You can build a platform, you can eliminate friction, you can cut costs and reach people who couldn't afford traditional care, but you cannot NDA your way out of a crossbite. You cannot sue a loose tooth into staying in place. And you cannot build an $8.9 billion company on the foundation of silencing the people you harmed. In the end, the only thing SmileDirectClub successfully disrupted was the lives of the customers it was supposed to serve.